HOA tried to seize my family's 100-acre forest. They faced a millionaire's wrath, the letter that started a war. Have you ever walked onto land that had been in your family for generations, only to discover that someone else was claiming ownership of it? Not a stranger, not a scammer, an HOA. An HOA that thought it could take 100 acres of protected forest from my family and turn it into a luxury recreation park for wealthy homeowners. What they didn't know was that I wasn't some retired farmer they could intimidate. I was a self-made millionaire, and by the time this was over, their entire board would be facing investigations, lawsuits, and financial ruin. But before we get into this unbelievable story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you enjoy HOA nightmare stories with satisfying endings, subscribe to Vanessa's HOA, because this one gets absolutely insane. My name is Ethan Walker, and this all started with a single letter. A letter that arrived on a quiet Monday morning. At first glance, it looked ordinary. White envelope, official HOA logo, certified mail. I almost threw it away. Then I opened it. Inside was a notice stating that the Willow Creek Homeowners Association had officially voted to convert a portion of my family's forest into a community recreation area. I laughed. Then I read it again. My smile disappeared because they weren't asking. They were informing me. According to the letter, the HOA planned to install hiking trails, picnic shelters, parking areas, and observation decks throughout nearly 40 acres of my property. And somehow they believed they had the legal authority to do it. I stared out my window toward the forest. 100 acres of towering oak trees, streams, wildlife, land my grandfather bought after returning from World War II, land my father protected his entire life, land that belonged to me. Yet somehow an HOA believed it could simply take it. I had no idea that this letter was only the beginning, because behind it stood a woman named Karen Montgomery. And Karen had already decided that my forest belonged to her community. Karen declares my forest community property. 3 days later, I attended an HOA meeting. Not because I lived in the HOA. I didn't. My property sat beside their subdivision. The forest had existed decades before Willow Creek was ever built. But Karen insisted I attend. The meeting room was packed. About 80 homeowners filled the chairs. At the front sat Karen Montgomery, HOA president. Perfect smile. Designer suit. The kind of person who treated rules like weapons. As soon as I entered, she smiled. The smile of someone who thought she'd already won. "Mr. Walker," she said, "we're so glad you came." I sat down. Karen launched into a presentation. A giant map appeared on the screen. My forest covered most of it. "Our community deserves access to nature," Karen announced. Applause erupted. She pointed directly at my property. "This underutilized land provides the perfect opportunity." Underutilized? My jaw tightened. The forest contained protected wildlife habitats, private trails, conservation projects. It wasn't unused. It was private. Karen continued. "The board has voted unanimously to begin development." I stood up. "You can't develop land you don't own." The room went silent. Karen smiled. "Our legal team believes otherwise." That sentence sent chills down my spine, because confident people are dangerous, especially when they're completely wrong. After the meeting, several homeowners approached me privately. Many looked uncomfortable. One elderly resident pulled me aside. "You need to investigate the board." "Why?" He looked around carefully. Because Karen's been doing things nobody understands. That conversation changed everything. For the first time, I stopped viewing this as an HOA dispute and started viewing it as something much bigger. The secret scheme. Over the next month, I hired investigators. What they discovered shocked even me. Karen wasn't trying to build hiking trails. That was the public story. The real plan was completely different. Behind closed doors, developers had been meeting with the HOA board. Secret meetings, secret agreements, secret financial arrangements. According to documents we uncovered, the HOA planned to lease portions of my forest to a luxury resort company, glamping sites, event venues, wedding locations, private cabins, millions of dollars in future revenue. And somehow Karen believed she could use my land to generate it. Then things got worse. A survey crew appeared inside my forest. Without permission, workers started placing markers, flags, stakes, equipment. I confronted them immediately. Who authorized this? The supervisor handed me paperwork. The name on top made my blood boil. Karen Montgomery. They were acting as if the project had already been approved, as if ownership no longer mattered. I immediately ordered everyone off the property. That afternoon, Karen called me. She sounded annoyed, not apologetic. Annoyed. Ethan, you're delaying progress. Progress? On my land. I laughed. Then I hung up. The next day, my attorney filed an emergency injunction. But Karen wasn't finished. Because 2 weeks later, she made the biggest mistake of her entire life. She started cutting trees. The Millionaire strikes back. I received the call at 6:15 in the morning. Chainsaws, heavy equipment, multiple workers inside my forest. I drove there immediately. What I saw nearly made me sick. Several mature oak trees had already been cut down. Trees older than most buildings in the county. Trees that had stood there for generations. Workers were clearing a future access road. I called the sheriff. Then I called my attorney. Then I called a federal environmental consultant. By noon, everything changed. Because those workers had accidentally damaged a protected habitat area. The consequences were immediate. State investigators arrived. Environmental agencies arrived. Lawyers arrived. Construction stopped. Karen panicked. For months she had acted untouchable. Now she was facing regulators. And regulators don't care about HOA politics. Over the next several weeks, the truth exploded. Financial records revealed hidden agreements. Emails exposed secret negotiations. Board members turned against each other. Some started cooperating with investigators. Others resigned. Karen tried blaming everyone else. Developers, attorneys, consultants, homeowners, anyone except herself. But evidence doesn't care about excuses. The deeper investigators looked, the worse things became. Millions of dollars in potential liability, unauthorized contracts, false representations, trespassing, environmental violations. The empire Karen built was collapsing, and it was happening fast. The final judgment. Nearly a year after receiving that first letter, we finally entered court. The courtroom was packed. Homeowners, reporters, former board members. Everyone wanted to see what happened next. My legal team presented evidence for hours. Property records, survey maps, emails, contracts, environmental reports, photographs, video footage. The evidence was overwhelming. Karen's attorney fought hard, but facts are stubborn things, and facts were not on their side. When the judge finally issued his ruling, the courtroom became completely silent. The HOA had no ownership rights, no easement rights, no development rights, no authority whatsoever. Every agreement was void. Every project was canceled. Every unauthorized action became liability. Then came the financial damages. The number was staggering. By the time penalties, legal costs, restoration expenses, and settlement obligations were calculated, the total exceeded several $1,000,000. Karen looked absolutely stunned. For the first time since this began, she realized something. She had never been fighting a forest owner. She had been fighting the actual owner, a man willing to defend his family's legacy. Months later, the HOA elected an entirely new board. The development plans vanished forever. The forest remained untouched. And today, when I walk beneath those giant oak trees, I still think about my grandfather, the man who bought this land after returning from war. He protected it. My father protected it. And when my turn came, I protected it too. Because some things aren't measured in dollars, comma. They're measured in legacy. And Karen learned it the hard way that when you try to steal a family's 100-acre forest, you might end up losing everything. If an HOA tried to seize your family's land, what would you do? Fight for it or walk away? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more HOA stories here on Vanessa's HOA.